The extraordinary juxtaposition of forces present during the crises in Hatha Zalandhara and the impact of Tvelock's murder all came together to provide the necessary social impetus that earlier tragedies didn't or couldn't inspire. Social scientists, historians, psychologists, and numerous other students of human behavior believed that the unique combination of events could not have inspired change had even one element failed. Tiernan summarized it perfectly on his 18th birthday. As we watched the dawn from Mount Estoliana, people were tired of inaction, and instead of being led by fear and hatred of others, they turned those emotions to the anger at the inactions of their leaders. They were ripe for change. Leonidas Agamemnon Zakarian, Capitulo 88.
Lyre had always suspected the day would arrive when her family would be unwilling to continue to support her. She did not expect it to happen on her sister's wedding day, nor for her father to denounce her so thoroughly to a veritable stranger. Once he disappeared into the building, she crossed over to a bench in the shade of a Japanese maple tree and sank onto it. She tried to wrap her head around the ramifications. Her father's outbursts were usually deadly serious. He could easily mean to treat her like a stranger from this day forth, which meant she would have to call one of her friends.
Your father did not just disown you on the basis of a compliment?
He looked and sounded incredulous. She focused on the man whose unwise words precipitated her crisis.
Don't let it trouble you. My parents did a paternity test. They wanted to prove that I wasn't related to them. They hoped that they would discover that I was somehow switched with some other child at the hospital. I always suspected that he would someday choose to disown me. He hates that my presence constantly reminds him that his genes created me.
Lyre? Max. I love Penn. She has two great faults, but I married her today knowing about them. The first is her parents, and the second is believing them when they say you are ugly.
Again, he glanced over his shoulder.
Lyre, whatever your parents have said to you about your looks, I had to tell you it's bullshit. I love Penn, and to me, she's the most beautiful woman in the world, but you are as beautiful as she is.
Max tried to say something, but Dwayne held up a hand and continued.
Max!
He said.
If I'd realized what I was inviting when I asked you to be groomsmen, I wouldn't have done it. But what's done is done. I'd say Lyre's possessions will be trashed or even burned before the day is over. You should both leave now. Sorry, buddy. I'll text you once I'm back from my honeymoon.
Dwayne stalked off back towards the building. Lyre looked at the handsome foreigner who had turned her life upside down and wondered what he would say or do next.
Lyre,
he said slowly.
There is one thing your father said that I agree with. That is, that he gave you into my keeping. I do not take such a charge lightly, especially since mine were the words that so incensed your father that he disowned you.
Please, Max, don't allow his words to trouble you. As I said, I always knew this day would come. It's no big deal. I'll call some friends and they'll loan me a couch or a sleeping bag until I can get a job and save up enough money to get a place of my own.
She frowned and then admitted,
I should have left home as soon as I graduated from high school.
No, I feel as if I am to blame.
He was adamant.
It really isn't your fault,
she pointed out.
Come.
He extended a hand to her.
I believe I know the correct course of action.
Feeling as though there was very little point in objecting, she placed her hand in his. She could at least find out what he had in mind. He led her towards the building. The wedding party and guests were assembling outside as a limousine pulled up next to the entrance. They stopped when the glowing couple came out. Max put an arm around Lyre's shoulders and she gratefully leaned against him. Something was reassuring about being held so close by an attractive man, especially in light of her father's blistering attack. Her sister threw her bouquet and it landed in Lyre's arms. Their eyes met and Lyre was surprised when her sister mouthed, I'll call you. Perhaps she had misjudged her sister and she never really bought into their parents' prejudices after all. Once the limousine pulled away, Max escorted her past the gathered wedding guests. As they walked by her parents, he leaned over and whispered in her ear,
You are beautiful.
Half an hour later, his driver pulled to a halt in front of the Domain International building. She climbed out of the car with his assistance. Looking up at the imposing height of the building, she asked Max,
Why are we here?
My uncle traveled with me to the States so I could attend the wedding and so he could see to a few pressing issues needing his specialized attention. It occurred to me that he is the best person to give us guidance. He is a man whose opinion carries great weight for everyone in my extended family.
He smiled at her as they approached the entrance.
Do you mind if I tell him what has happened and seek his advice on your situation?
Lyre shrugged.
I don't really think it matters.
Once they were in the lobby, she stopped and he turned to look at her.
You do realize, Max, there really isn't anything your uncle could say or do that will make my parents take me back. They are very stubborn people. I am now officially disowned.
She grimaced off into the distance, reliving her father's humiliating words.
I don't really want to be reconciled with them anyway,
she said softly. Max grabbed her hands and squeezed them.
I do not believe reconciliation with your family is in your best interests. No. We are here to ask my uncle for his opinion on alternatives for you, ones that do not include your parents whatsoever.
Ginger baby girl.